Hello? Okay. Who knows what this is? This is the Apple II. Came out in the last century, right? And when Steve Jobs was pushed out of Apple, John Scully, the guy who sold sugar water, he made this his identity. He said this is gonna create a whole new market. And you know what, in some ways it did. It's the first personal digital assistant. But it was a total epic fail. If you watch WKRT in Cincinnati like I did growing up, her pushed turkeys out of a plane to promote Thanksgiving. The turkey didn't fly. That was an epic fail. This was an epic fail. John Scully told his team, make this personal digital assistant small enough to fit in his pocket. They couldn't. So they broke into his house and made his pockets bigger. The reason this failed, and this is what I want to say, is he promised that it would have handwriting recognition. He went around saying there was a software company in Russia that was top-notch that was going to produce handwriting recognition. And the device had a stylus, which Steve Jobs would have never have said yes to. And when it finally came out, ridiculously late, the handwriting analysis did not work. It was the epic fail. And people turned on this. And the reason I say that is think how far we've come with AI. Handwriting recognition is AI. Think how far we've come, like how trivial that is today. I want to remind you, imagination action is about using your imagination and taking action. And the next speaker who's going to facilitate the next group is one of my favorite people. He's a verb in my mind. Peter Diamandis has 18 times the amount of energy I will ever have. And this is my Star Trek communicator. I take it everywhere because if you know the Wrath of Khan in the history books, in the science fiction books, that happens 250 years from now. And right now we're about to turn 250 as a United States country, but who's pushing us to think about what kind of future we want? Who's pushing us to think about how we could, look out for our species and reach our potential? Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Diamandis, come on down. He's going to host an hour conversation. That is not a typo. This panel goes twice because they're that good. They asked, I was thinking of doing it like six blocks, but I said I was just doing 2. We have the CEO of Replit. I'm not gonna, who's used Replit? Who is just blown away by Replit? Who realizes the significance of Replit? All right, you're gonna realize even more. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter and his game.
A lot more people that use it that recognize its importance.
Welcome, everybody. Allow me 1 second to just bring onto the stage my 2 moonshot mates, Dave Blundin. Dave is the creator, CEO of Link Ventures, Link Exponential Ventures, runs a little over $1 billion out of MIT. No comment to Stanford here on investing in companies in AI space. An amazing guy, built with the very first, if not the very first, neural net machine learning company, exited for $1 billion, and it's been upheld since then. He and I and Mike Saylor were roommates together at our fraternity, so it was quite a corner of the house. Salim Ismail, over here, another moonshot mate, is the creator of Exponential Organizations. He was effectively my co-founder along with Ray Kurzweil at Singularity University. Anybody from Singularity University here? A few. I'd be proud. Raise your hands. And has been the author of a number of extraordinary books, and we'll learn more about him. Amjad, a pleasure. No one needs introduction of you, the CEO, founder of Replit. A pleasure to have you here.
Nice to meet you. Such a pleasure.
If I were to summarize your life, I would go coding in an internet cafe in Jordan, rejected 3 times by YC, finally gets in, builds Replit, and is now helping 1 billion people code. Is that it?
That's right. That's a good one.
Not bad. One of the things that Dave, Salim, and I talk about a lot, because it's what we care about deeply, is helping entrepreneurs take moonshots. And having a moonshot that's part of a massive transformative purpose. And we talk about the idea that an individual today can positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. And what an extraordinary world to be in. And I love the fact that your moonshot, and it sounds like your massive transformative purpose, has been to enable 1 billion people to code. When did you first have that vision?
I built my first app. I used to go code in internet cafes back in Jordan. One thing I realized that they had computers all over the place, but they were not using software to manage the system. So everything was in paper and a pen, and I decided to build software to manage the store, and that was my first company. And the thing that I noticed is that the idea was so powerful, and I felt like I could build it very quickly. And it took me 2 or 3 years to get the software done. And it took me another months up to a year to figure out how to actually deploy the thing. How to burn it into CVs and get it to the cafe, how to install it there, how to manage the thing. And I felt there's such a big barrier between having an entrepreneurial idea and actually deploying it into the world. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, how do you make that process easier?
Can I show you easy? Can we get the slide up on the screen here? So this is me this morning. I am flying from Santa Monica Airport. I've got the laptop open in my lap, obviously. You can see a Starlink antenna on the dashboard over there. And I'm coding on Replit on the way there.
This is the future.
I tweet this out. Hopefully,
Did air traffic control know about this?
Hopefully Elon reaches out and talks about the Starlink Replit partnership with the Italian program. But I said, life doesn't get any better than this. The ability to create on demand anywhere at any time.
Yeah. And so in college, I ran into another problem, which is every time I wanted to go do a little bit of programming in a different language, I would have to install the development environment again and again and again. And I was like, we're moving everything to the web, everything to the internet, except programming. And so I started working on what would become the first browser-based coding sandbox. And that went viral on Happy News and GitHub. And I remember one of the sort of very important moments was Brendan Ike, the inventor of JavaScript, or the Mozilla browser, tweeting about my project. So here we are, I'm a 20-year-old kid in Jordan in my parents' basement, and the inventor of JavaScript, the language that I use, is talking about my application. That was huge for me, and then I started getting these job offers. Peter Norvig actually was just starting to create Udacity, and reached out to me and was like, hey, we're trying to integrate this program you built so we can teach people programming in the cloud. And then another company called Code Academy started up on the technology that I built, and Code Academy became the #1 coding school in the world. How many people have learned how to code in Code Academy? A lot. I thought more, but we taught 50 million people how to code. And then afterwards, I sort of left the company and sat back and just reflecting on my own journey. If a kid from Jordan is able to kind of come to the US and invent something that affects millions of lives, there's probably millions of other kids like that all around the world. There are. And so that became my mission, is like, how do you make it so that anyone can build something that could impact millions of people?
Love it. Dave.
Sure.
Where's yours?
So, really interesting. The journey from Jordan to Silicon Valley, I think, is worth spending 1 second because I have a follow-up question on that. But you skipped over that in your storyline there. How did you end up actually physically here? How do you live here?
Yeah. So I got an O1 visa to go to New York, and I was founding engineer at Code Academy, and then left Code Academy, and then I couldn't work at the time. I left. I had 60 days to stay in the country.
By the way, can we talk about how important the O1 visa is?
Yes.
And how critical. One of the things I've been tweeting and saying, we should be like stapling a green card on top of every degree that comes out of Stanford, MIT, or Harvard to enable those entrepreneurs to stay here and work here and contribute to the U.S. economy.
And I think this part of the story is really important for you in particular because you didn't come over to go to Stanford or go to one of the universities where you already had finished university in Jordan.
Yes.
So it's a different story from us.
Yeah, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of other people from my country, typically their way to the US is via university.
Yeah.
But I actually wasn't like a good student because I spent all my time hacking and programming, so my grades were kind of crappy. So I had to, like, I came through the open source route.
I heard the story of you hacking your university.
Yes.
to change your grades.
Yeah, so I felt like it was unfair that
Better test anyway. That should be the actual grade.
yeah, like so I was actually getting failed for attendance because I wasn't showing up.
Because you were doing work.
Because I was doing work. Actually, one thing I tried to do, I had like a Nokia Symbian phone. I was like, can I code on the desk so I can do something more interesting than listening to this teacher elaborate?
I love the fact that you hacked the Y Combinator application and put a referral video. That's true degeneracy.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's this. I think this feeling of these structures, these systems that we build around civilization that is really meant to make people conform.
Yes. Put you in the box.
Yeah, put you in the box. And I always felt like the first time it worked where I thought differently and did something different, and that allowed me to go through the back door, which I think is a more meritocratic way of doing it. I just embraced that. And partly, like, it kind of always works out. I don't know if I'm just lucky, but even quitting Code Academy and didn't know what to do. I just like got bored and wanted to do something else. I had only 60 days to stay in the US, and I went and applied to a bunch of companies. One company I was really excited about at the time, Mark Zuckerberg was talking about the vision of internet.org, right? The idea that we're going to connect everyone in the world. Everyone will have access to the internet. That's an extension of my mission. If you have access to computers and the internet, you should be able to build something great. We're going to find talent all over the world. So I applied to work at Facebook, and the lawyers told me, well, you have to go back to Jordan so we can apply for a new visa. I was like, screw you, I'm not going to do that. And on my birthday, I got a green card in the mail because I had applied for one and something worked. And so the idea of like just taking a chance and kind of the universe rewards you for that. Don't be too stupid about it.
It is kind of a scary story though, because that green card could have gone any direction. It's totally random.
Yeah.
And yet here you are, and here's Replit. I mean, think about what a difference that makes for the world.
And when I joined Facebook, I was sort of like a nobody, but like I was really excited about this idea of internet.org. I just started working on Android because I thought that Android is the main device that most people are going to be connected to the internet via. And I ran into this problem with Java. Java being this really, crap, no offense to anyone. Really crappy programming language, resource log, really hard to program. And then I happened on a new idea, which is, okay, can we make the mobile platform more programmable? Started working on that. And found other people in the company working on it. That became React Native. And React Native is so that you can write code once and you can run it in all the different devices. And now that also touched billions of people because there's part of Facebook's written in it, Discord is written in it. And so I think that just like this idea of not over planning your life, just going about life and finding interesting problems to solve and solving them usually will net out the right thing.
Well, so that life experience is a perfect segue into my question, which is, using Replit to discover talent all over the world. So there's two things I'm dying to ask you. One of them is your two meta questions. I can use my own product to discover talent and to recruit, and I can use my own product to build my own products. We'll get to the second one later. But it's really unique to products like yours that you can actually see a billion people or whatever coding. Right. And you being discoverable in Jordan through that vehicle, you can now make that a much more scaled version. Because there's talent all over the world. Right. And it's not going to naturally have a grade point average, a degree or whatever. And so how are you going to find those incredibly talented people? Oh wait, they're right here using my product every day. I can see them writing incredible code, building incredible products.
Our first employee, it was just my co-founder and I, my co-founder is my wife, and we were kind of struggling to hire. At the time, we weren't in YC yet. And YC rejected us 3 or 4 times. So that's why they had to get recalled.
Wait, was it 3 or 4? I mean,
I actually kind of forgot because I would apply every time.
Oh, I see.
And then I would record a video every time. You know, the YC video is like a hostage kind of situation.
How do you apply to
3 or 4 times.
I'm going to give you back this time. There are 80 seats that are being seated, and there's 100 people standing. Could everyone raise their hands to the seat next to them? And in the next 30 seconds, if you're standing, you want to sit, you got 30 seconds to bust the move. Go. Hands up. We're really sorry.
Just where we're getting this back.
I mean, I love that idea that you have a discovery engine for talent, right? And I think one of the things that's very important today is that the talent is global, genius is global, and the tools are available and demonetized globally.
That's right.
And how fast it's changed. I remember I was talking to David earlier that when you were both undergrads at MIT, there was a course called 6111. And I would literally build my computers with AND gates, and NOR gates, and we would hexadecimal code them, for finite state machines. And that was coding, and that was hard. And how far it's come.
Yeah. You only need an end.
Yeah. But we eventually got to EPROMs. Yeah. But it was extraordinary how far it has come. I want to talk about the future of coding in a second. Because I had Amjad Masad in my abundance stage, of course, 2 years ago. We were talking about this, and we were saying how coding would be done by AI systems. And the front page of all newspapers in India is Amjad Masad announces coding is dead. And you got a bunch of hate mail for that. What is coding in the future?
Yeah. So I think to understand coding in the future, we have to understand it in the past. So in the early era of computing, maybe in the 30s and 40s and a little bit into the 50s, computers were fancy calculators. In order to change the programming of computers, you had to literally rewire them. So there was no programs. Turing, in his 1936 paper, invented the Turing machine and showed that you can build a universal computer. That wasn't until von Neumann in 1945 that he invented the concept of a stored program machine, which is what you have in your pocket today. Every computer is the von Neumann architecture. And that was a huge leap forward. The idea that you can program a computer was suddenly a big thing because computers weren't programmable. People forget that. And then you had another leap, which is when Grace Hopper invented the compiler. One interesting quote that is actually very much reminiscent of this era, and I'm sure she got a lot of hate mail for that, but she said, we used to kind of program in machine code. It's not really programming. It's kind of similar to like this rewiring of the machine. And she wanted people to program in English. And this is the C programming language, the high-level programming languages that she invented. She called them English. And it's sort of similar to what Henry Karpathy recently said. It's like English is a hot new programming language. It's not hot or new. Grace Hopper has actually thought about it, and she was like, the specialists are not going away, but we're going to introduce programming to millions of people. Yes. Because programming is going to be in English. Of course, that vision sort of went away, and programming became an industry, and you had to, go to Stanford for 4 years to be able to do it. But now we're at a moment, I think, as big as the invention of the computer, perhaps even bigger and as big as the invention of a stored program computer, which is programs are no longer static; they're malleable. You can buy a machine with zero software in it, and you can vibe code all of it by just talking to the machine, right? And that's been the vision of computing since the start, which is why I think vibe coding sort of undersells that vision. The idea is to be able to talk ideas into creation.
So you're an idea generator that gets compiled in code.
That's right. That's right. What ultimately matters is thinking clearly and being able to break problems down into individual components and then being able to communicate it clearly.
So
So this is a question I had. I grew up in C++ and Pascal coding, etc., right? And you learn a certain structure, navigating data structures, thinking through architecting the overall software before you start building it to be more efficient, when you go around optimizing, etc., etc. As people are vibe coding, those skills aren't there. It's the same thing like a student that's using ChatGPT to write an essay. The thought process of constructing a logical flow of arguments is lost. So do you worry about that? Or is it the same argument where we used to use with assembly line? Yeah, who else to be writing assembly, machine learning, or hexadecimal? Right? We'll just do it at a higher level. And you're then articulating those ideas at a higher and higher level. Is that essentially the vector you see in that?
I think so. Every time someone would make an argument in any history of computing, where you say, okay, this is too high level, you're abstracting the NAND gates and the registers and all of that. You're not going to be able to do good work because it's too high level. Every time it's been proven wrong, and every time what we thought of as too high level becomes low level. Now C programming is low level for them at the time. The machine code people was like, oh, this is bullshit.
Interesting twist on that though, because I don't know great software.
You weren't around when I was doing software development. That's all I'm saying.
So I didn't know great software invented the compiler, but if her original vision was you're going to do it in English.
Yeah.
But then you look at where Python ended up, or you look at where other languages ended up, you can't really easily specify in English, persistence, pointers, or enrichment, or stuff like that. So it kind of went to some middle ground. So now the level you can build stuff like boom, and the Replit you can build stuff like boom, and I'm sure you think you built on your plane working, right?
It did. It was I built an app that would assess my mindset every morning, and then would upgrade it based upon sort of giving me a series of prompts. I had a book finishing called Mindset Mastery, and I wanted that to become something that it would just be usable for myself. And it was great. It was beautiful, actually. It was, in addition to being very beautiful. I want to hit something that I think is important. So right now, there's 150 million GitHub accounts. I looked at the numbers, and if you look at programmer salary over the last 3 years, it's up 50% on average. And at the same time that we've seen the number of programmers, has gone up 50% over the last 3 years. At the same time, the number of programmers has gone up 50%. The average increase in programming salary has gone up 24%. Right, which is counterintuitive. There's you think it's an oversupply, which tells me that the value of programs is massive, and it's the explosion is greater than 1. What happens when we have 1 billion programmers, or 2 billion programmers? What's your vision for that world of abundance? Right? You read abundance earlier on. Thank you for your kind words you said earlier. It is one of the mechanisms for unleashing creativity and unleashing entrepreneurship. And we talk all the time that the career of the future is entrepreneur. That's the only career that I think is going to survive. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah.
So what is it like when we have 1 billion, 2 billion programmers, coders in the world?
Yeah, I think that the world will trend into a more meritocratic society, and not because there's someone who has an ethical vision of the future and they're going to impose meritocracy. I think meritocracy will impose itself because those tools becoming more available to more people. Those who are having the most impact will rise to the top naturally, right? And I think in every aspect of society, we're talking about our YC story. When we entered YC, it was ultimately because Sam Altman and Paul Graham saw Replit on Hacker News.
So just to tell the story a little bit, which I've heard, get rejected 3 times, Paul Graham and Sam basically reach out to you, they've seen you on Hacker News, and they're like, okay, you gotta apply again.
Yeah, so what happened was, I wake up one morning in late 2017. We had started the company in 2016. It's been a project for a lot longer.
Overnight success after 9 years of work.
Yes. We've been grinding. There's 2 or 3 of us. We were selling to schools and whoever can buy our software.
No, we can buy this.
Anyone, really, kind of door-to-door programming environment salesman. And so I get this Twitter DM, and it's Sam Altman with his lowercase. And hey, I want NYC. Like, dude, I know who you are. We're interested in what you're doing. Would love to meet. And then he gives me this address. I'm like, that's not NYC's address. So I show up there, and it is Neuralink and OpenAI. And I didn't know about it. Maybe I've heard about it now a little bit. So I go into OpenAI, and Sam was sitting there. And he says, we're really interested in what you're doing. And by the way, Paul found your happiness. Because at the time, I was like building a system, like blogging about it, and wrote some interesting blog posts. And he says, well, you should go see Paul Graham. Unfortunately, he's retired. He's not in the Bay Area. You should go to London and meet him. I was like, okay, let me grab my private jet. The thing about rich people in Silicon Valley, once they're rich, they think everyone else is rich like that. I couldn't even get a visa to go there. So,
right, you have 15 trillion cells in the human body, each covered by the DNA. Now, essentially, we can now
3.2 billion lines of code.
We can now edit the DNA into software. Essentially, a human being is now a software engineering problem. When you apply Replit to biology code, are you seeing that happen? When do you see that happen? When do you see it?
The name Replit sounds very biological. Yeah.
Right there.
Ultimately, the fascinating thing about LLMs, which is similar to the DNA code, is how much knowledge it compresses. I downloaded this app called, I think, Full Moon on my phone that allows you to download open source 1 billion parameter models. Because I was in the plane, I like to read books in the plane. I know there's Starlink in the planes right now, but I pretend they don't exist because there's like 12 hours that I can read a book in peace. And so I was like, but I need to look some stuff up. So let me download like DeepSeek 1B. And it's amazing how there is. I mean, obviously it hallucinates and you need to check its work and everything like that. But 1 billion parameters, what is that? Like less than 1 gigabyte.
Yeah.
And that embeds a large portion of human knowledge. And if you run it for longer, like R1 does, DeepSeek R1, it can solve problems as well. And
I can't wait to download it into my Neuralink jet.
Yeah, exactly. These systems are efficient, and it shows you that it's something about the nature of the universe that there's so much data noise and redundancy that you can really boil things down to like very small, you can boil things down. Like the essence of things is actually very simple.
Isn't my point too actually the data? Like if you take a big neural net, you get about 1 trillion parameters, it fits easily on your laptop. And this is all human knowledge, everything on Wikipedia, everything on the internet, all learned, and about $100 to $200 million training process, and all compresses down and just fits on your laptop. Now the processing is way too slow, so getting it to run, so that's why you need to run the billion parameter model. But putting that aside, just the amount of storage that we have is just incredible. And the amount of processing is why videos were so much, the processing.
I think we're going to look back on this period and just think, God, we've been so inefficient, because I think the ultimate LLM will probably be about 1 billion parameters.
Isn't that crazy?
And back to DNA and bio, like we're seeing like OpenAI had big results, obviously AlphaFold before that. Clearly we have the data to train now with the way we train our LLMs is unsupervised learning, so you can like find this compressible information out of this massive sea of a lot of noise without supervision, without data labeling. And I think LLMs will get really good at that. And once they're able to generate, be able to like code bio, the thing on us would be to create these environments. And that's what I see our company as a tech company, we're about creating environments. We want to be the best habitat for LLMs. Right now, the best habitat for LLMs is to be in a virtual machine environment. But in the future...
One more question to close up the landscape topic. So if I look at the companies that do coding, so Replit, Level, Cursor, Windsor, let's see. You guys are probably the only one that built foundation models because you were there early. So you actually trained these things. I think everyone else just picked up, OpenAI or whatever later. So then you're like, okay, well, we're not going to spend $100 million building training our own model. It's just way too expensive. So now we're on top of the other. Oh wait, now our valuation is in the billions. you're raising tons of money, it's confidential, I just found out, so you're raising tons of money, and you're not actually planning to consume it, right? You haven't spent the money for your last funding, but you have a war chest now that actually is plenty big to actually train foundation models. So is there a version of your future where you get back into the foundation model training business?
So I think it's cyclical. And the way it works, when we went from GPT to 3, there was a period of time where there wasn't a lot of progress. The tricks were known. So we sort of knew how to do pre-training. The labs was busy cooking up, measure experts and GPT-4, whatever. There's a period of time where startups can actually use their data and add a layer on top of these foundation models and fine-tune do all of that. And so Replit Code 3P, 3 million parameter, was state-of-the-art coding model in 22, 23. And that put us ahead of the competition because no one else had access to all that cheap and that easy to run. But then the foundation models did another big job, the scaling up of the models. I think we're reaching a point where it makes sense to go back into training because we have a certain data set that we think is very helpful, especially for the kind of use cases that Replit does. And we're starting to find places in our agent architecture because it's not just one agent. We have so many sub agents. We have the testing agent. We were able to build a computer use model, a computer use architecture that is 3 times faster and 15 times cheaper than the state-of-the-art from the big labs. And I think that we're going to continue finding these things until we get the next frontier model that actually, and that's what happens is that's the history of machine learning, the little lesson. Then then you can put data and compute, and you can consume all these use cases. And so just being open-minded about it. Some companies were like, we're gonna live or die by training. But for us, we're ultimately trying to solve a problem and pursue a mission, and we'll just do whatever it needs to get there.
I really thought in a million years that you would never have the guts to say that. I mean, you have the capital to do it, but I can see there's actually some MIT alum, brilliant Kristen Daly here, and their eyes lit up as soon as you said that. Because I think that mission statement you just outlined will attract a ton of talent that doesn't want to go to someplace boring and want to do something super
I close this out, going back to your roots. So listening to us, our Moonshots podcast, the three of us discuss taking moonshots. There are entrepreneurs around the world who are young Amjad, someplace in the Middle East, someplace in Southeast Asia, in South and Central America, who are dreaming big. What's your advice to them? What's your advice to inspire them and how should they think about their next few years? Because do you agree that the next few years are really the game?
Yes. My advice would already be to follow the light. I think that's part of parcel.
We've had a conversation, Skip University, with a company.
Yeah, I think all of those are details.
Get to Stanford, get in and drop out.
What really matters is throw away most of the advice that your parents and your society give you. Because it's such a dynamic world right now.
Don't do what you're told.
Yeah, and conforming is the worst thing that you can do. Don't do what you're told, and it'll take real, self-programming to actually exit that mindset of really doing what you're told, and try to really think from first principles about
Find your purpose. Why? I love the quote from Mark Twain. Says 2 important days in your life: the day you were born, and the day you found out why.
Yeah, and I think the meme, the midway to her, I think has a real truth to it, in that you can really over-plan your life, overthink your life, follow your intuition, and being attracted to a problem. I think you were talking about the human spirit, right? There's something, and I agree with you, there's something essential about the human spirit that probably not going to be captured.
You're saying, I tweeted last night, the one thing AI will not replicate or displace the human spirit.
And I think because we're humans, we live among other humans, we can see problems that are very important for our communities and the people around us that are not getting better than a machine. And so following your intuition for what problems you want to solve will probably net out a truly unique and differentiated position in the world for you to have. I mean, I'm very blessed to have a long-term mission. I've so found my purpose, and I think the way to do it is to follow your curiosity and intuition. If it takes you to university, then that's fine. If it takes you to build a company, that's fine.
The implication of this is pretty profound because take education, right? We've been doing education from a supply side perspective for 100 years, where you go get a skill to become a developer, an accountant, a doctor, whatever, and then you go to the job market to sell those skills. All of that evaporates now, and now we have to move to the demand side. Say, what problem do you want to solve?
That's right.
And now you get the tools and the technologies, the techniques, the Replit repositories to solve that problem. And that, I think, is going to be the most exciting thing to do.
Yeah.
Good place to close out and respect the topic clock here. Ladies and gentlemen, Amjad Masad.
Thank you.
Dave Blundin.